Have you met somebody who has done black magic and you know them?
When I was on this path, and this is something a lot of people don't know, my first teacher was very dark. She was dark arts. I fell in with her, and she taught me a lot of dark magic. This was my first introduction to this world, was with this very dark witch. When I started to realize what this was and who this was, I had to make a choice. This person definitely would not hesitate if you did something for them to put you in a jar.
Can that really happen though?
There are no limitations. So I think it depends on the power of the person, the power of intent, and I do believe that these things can happen.
It was very interesting to know that, you could read animals' thoughts.
Animal communications has been here as long as psychics have been here. There are 4 levels of communication: mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. Every animal communicator can talk with any animal. Mine is exotics: monkeys, whales, snakes. My son, he was going with his finger like this on the floor, and there was a spider following his finger. And I thought, oh, how endearing, how adorable, how cute. And then I took a second look at the spider, and the spider was walking backwards. And my heart just went, oh.
I've not shared this story ever on social media ever before, but when my grandmother passed away, a night before that, I got a dream where...
That wasn't a dream. That was your grandmother coming to tell you, I'll see you again.
If you were to do the reading on me right now, do I have to ask you a specific question? No. Is there something that you can guess about me?
Sorry, what's your name again? Do you have a cat? Not a cat, a dog?
Yeah.
When you leave, tell him
That's
to...
crazy.
Yeah.
We just adopted
Was this on air? Is this filming?
Yeah.
Okay, good. There. We've just done it.
Would you call yourself a witch?
Some would. But if you've pissed me off, and I say to you, I wish on you that you know your own truth.
So today's podcast is going to be very special because I just don't have one guest. I have 2 guests today. Angel and Lula. Say hi to everyone, Lula. And she's already made a good friend of me. All right, Angel, thank you so much for coming to the podcast today.
Oh, thank you for having us both.
For having us both. I mean, it's crazy how you and I, we met the other day and, we talked about animal psychic. We talked about human psychic. And there are a lot of things that you do.
Yeah.
And today, we are going to explore all the things that you do.
Oh, that's exciting. I'm so excited.
Yeah. So if in a nutshell, if you would want to say that, what do you do and who you are?
It's hard to explain what I do. Some people would call me a psychic or a clairvoyant or an animal communicator. I am what I need to be when I need to be it. So for me, I call myself a realm walker because I walk many realms. The psychic is somebody who works very much with the present, who you are right now, what you're going through. The clairvoyant works with so many different things, the different clairs, the different aspects of who we are. And I do that, right? But I also work with ceremony and leading ceremony. And I work on stage with audiences, which I've been doing all of my life. So I wear many hats and I walk many realms.
Amazing. And when did you realize that you had this kind of an ability or you wanted to explore animal psychic? Because we have heard a lot about human psychics, but it was very interesting to know that, you could read animals' thoughts.
And it's a very interesting thing because animal communications has been here as long as psychics have been here. And it's been there for eons, for thousands of years. But it's really only recently, I'd probably say in the last 40 years that it's starting to come to light, and only in the last maybe 10 or 15 that it's become very mainstream. Animal communications for me, I mean, you have to understand, I was a non-believer. I didn't believe in any of this stuff. I fell into it, and when something is meant for you, it's going to find you. And it really did find me. I was in Guatemala, and there were some medicine people I was taken to, and I was already on this path as a psychic. I was on this path as a healer, and when I went there, they did this massive ceremony, and he said to me, you are going to make a difference talking to animals, and you're going to change lives. And the first thought in my head was, he's on crack. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And then I remember sitting down about 2 days later. I was in this beautiful villa, and it was on the side of a volcano. It was gorgeous. And there was this dragonfly, and the dragonfly perched on my shoulder, and I could feel it in a way I'd never felt anything before. I didn't dismiss it, but I dismissed it. And then I remember looking at the volcano in front of me, and it was all brush, and I could see animals in the trees. I could see animals in the leaves. And the woman who owned the villa, we were talking that night, and she said to me, she goes, when you're truly connected to this land and to the magics here, she said, you'll start to see the spirits in the trees. And I went, are you kidding me? Because for me, there has to be a limit somewhere. And I was beginning to realize there was no limit. But then when I came home, the entire veil lifted, because I was taken to a healing facility. It just opened, and everyone was signing these little binders. I was being polite, so I signed a binder. And I'm like, okay, here you go. I put my name down. Didn't know what I was doing. And about 2 weeks later, I got an email saying, don't forget, you have an animal communications course coming up. And I'm like, what the hell? And this friend of mine called me. We talked, and she goes, are you going? And I said, absolutely. I am not going. There's got to be, this is craziness. She goes, you're going. And she dragged me to it. So I said, all right, I'll go to disprove it.
Do you want to have?
Yes, I do. I said here we go. Hi, baby girl. To disprove it. And she said, okay. So I went, and sure enough, by the end of the weekend, I was so convinced that this was real that I ended up taking her advanced course. And through that time, I actually ended up getting a job as an animal communicator. In a little store in Newmarket, where I then spent the next 9.5 years learning.
Wow.
Yeah, and that became my home, and that became my second family, and that's really where my journey began.
Where was that again?
In Newmarket, Ontario. It's a little store called the Hedge Witch, and I love them there. They're my second family.
Wow.
So.
And how old were you during that time?
I believe I was just in my late 20s, early 30s at that point, and that's where my life really began.
So is that something that you have to have some special kind of an ability or special kind of a realization that, I want to go that part? Because the reason why I'm asking you that is, this is not something that an average Joe would think about, that, I want to pursue this kind of a career.
That's right.
Or not just a career, but like explore this kind of a thing.
Yeah, you don't grow up going, hey, I'm going to be an animal communicator,
Yeah.
or I'm going to be a psychic, unless your parent might be one.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this was something, I keep literally tripping over it. My entire career, it's always come to me. And it's like the medicine men, right? They told me I was going to be doing this. I didn't believe it, but the door opened. So for me, when I started to realize this was very real, it became exciting. And the more you're excited and passionate about something, the more you want to know, the more you want to grow. So the more I wanted to understand it, and the more I wanted to work with it. So you practice, and it becomes like a muscle. It gets stronger, and the stronger it is, the more you love it. And I've been extremely fortunate, because the people that I've met, my clients, the animal families, I don't call them owners, because we don't own, we care for, the animal families, the pet parents out there, I've learned so much. And from the animals, like I can't even tell you the experiences I've had with animals that have been so profound. I think one of my the first two experiences I had were probably the most profound. We were at a location, I don't want to mention it just simply because, it's who they are. And they had these whales. We were downstairs, and there was like a window where you could see them, because it was packed upstairs. So I took my little son at the time, and we went down there. Ooh, no, I'm joking. And we were watching, and we heard, oh my, she's breaking off and she's going down. Where are you going? Where are you going? And this whale came down, and I kid you not, it first went to my son. And there were lots of people down there, and I thought, oh my God. And my son, I knew at that point, did have abilities of his own. And I thought, this is really cool. And people started stepping back a little bit. And then the whale turned, and it came to me. And I will never forget this as long as I live. I get emotional even talking about it. The feelings that I felt of loneliness, pride, I felt the whale. Not this whale, but whale, and its energy and its strength and its beauty and its just everything about it. And it put me to my knees. Like I literally fell to my knees. And then when it felt like it was complete, it turned around and went right back to the show. It left me there. And my son came over to me, I never forget this, and he put his hand on my shoulder, and he said to me, I felt that too. And it was one of the most profound experiences to date. And that's when I realized, oh my God, this is so real. And I remember leaving feeling so dazed. And it took me days to probably weeks to process that. So it's a privilege and it's an honor to be able to work with animals who are beautiful like that and silly like this. So, and I have tons of stories like that. If you don't mind, I can share another one.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I remember just after that, it was probably a few months after that, we had this wonderful orange cat. His name was Marble. And he and my son's dad had a huge war going on. They just did not like each other. And so he would go and he would pee in the heat register. And I decided to keep peace in the family. If I was going to prove this animal communication stuff was going to exist, I have to work with him. I've got to fix and heal the situation. So for 2 weeks, every single day, I sent him visualizations of what I wanted him to do, And after 2 weeks, I was like, pretty much, I was disparaging and I was just like, this isn't working. This stuff is crap. See, it was crap. Here's the limitation.
Because you were also kind of a non-believer at the start?
Yeah, I was a skeptic. But at this point, I was believing more, so I was more of a skeptic. So again, my son, he comes into the room one morning. I'm asleep, and he goes, "Mommy, mommy, mommy." And I said, "What?" And he goes, "Marble is peeing in the toilet." I'm like, "Excuse me?" And he goes, "She's peeing." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I'm half awake. So I get out of bed, I jump out of bed, I go there, and my son and I are kind of looking around the corner, almost Norman Rockwell-like, and there's this cat with his back to us, peeing in the toilet, which was the visualization I'd been given him. And I remember, and I will never forget it, it was such a cool moment. He literally turned his head, and all I heard was, "This is what you wanted, wasn't it?" And I thought, oh my God, this is real. That was the moment I realized animal communications is real.
Wow.
And we never had a problem after that. It was a deal I made to him. Listen, you do this and we can do this for you. You do this and there's peace in the house. So there are many ways of working with animals to help them and help families and help situations even. And it's beautiful. It's a really beautiful way to work.
So let me understand this. Once you were able to send that visualization about that, how do you want that, your cat to be?
Respond.
To respond. You kept sending visualizations about that visual picture to him.
Yeah, so different animals will communicate in different ways. There are 4 levels of communication: mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. The physical, we understand: sit, stay, come. Those are the animals who understand pretty much everything we say. And then there is the mental way of working, right? You know how we say, "Oh, my cat's mental." It's a different kind of mental. And so with this, we work with visualization and we work with thoughts. And I can send, with animals who communicate in this fashion, images or little TikToks or reels, right? You create a little 5-second reel in your head and you keep playing it over and over again. Eventually, they will understand that and they will do what you ask them to do. And if there's something you don't want them to do, you send them that visualization with a great big X in it, right?
Is it like a telepathy?
Okay, so that's a really good question. I don't consider it telepathy. A lot of communicators do. I see it as heart-centered work. So when an animal will tell you, or an animal will be drawn towards certain people but not others, it's because they know people who are open to receiving. They know people who come from the heart. So I don't believe it's a head thing. I believe it's a heart thing. I believe it's a body thing. I believe it's an instinctual thing, right? With the mental aspect, we do, however, I tell this to people who have animals who communicate this way, have imaginary conversations with them, knowing they're not imaginary, right? And I find that this works so very well with so many people. And then we have the emotional animals, and these ones are more like snakes or spiders. And with that, you will use maybe 2 or 3 words. So, "I love you." The minute you say love, you feel that. And animals who are emotional are going to feel that word. Yeah. So my rule of thumb is with animals who communicate on the emotional level, with these animals, you want to find the action word, right? So let's go for a run. Yeah. Right? Let's go outside, right? Whatever that action word is, you want to really focus on that word because you're going to feel it, right? Let's go. Let's do. Come on. It's time to eat. Yeah. Eat is the action word. Yeah. If you do that, it works exceptionally well. And then there are the spirit level animals, and these are the ones everybody wants. So spirit level is when we talk to animals who have crossed over, right? Which is sometimes grief counseling. Sometimes it's because, sometimes it's actually because animals are not in our presence. Maybe there's a divorce and dad got the dog or mom got the cat. And we want to know how those animals are doing. Sometimes it's a lost animal case, which is a completely different thing because a lot of communicators won't do those anymore. But if an animal, oh, sorry, that's your head. I thought that was your tail. With the spirit level, that's the one I want to see the ghost. Right? I want to talk to the spirit. But that's just one aspect, right? And a lot of people ask me too, well, how do you know what level of communication your animal is? And that's really simple. Watch them. When you are in crisis or you're feeling really bad, that's the animal, the emotional animal, the one that communicates emotionally, is the one who will come to you, who will console you, who will look at you and go, it's okay, mommy, I'm here, right? The physical animal is the animal who's always moving around. Let's go come on, let's go have some fun. He's the football player type, right? Then you have the animals who are mental emotional. Those are the ones who sit and stare at you. Those are the ones that people mistake for, oh my God, he's so dumb. He doesn't understand what I'm saying. Oh my God, I talk to him and he's like totally oblivious. No, it's because you're not communicating on their level. Right? And then the spirit level animals are really cool because those are the animals.
Spirit level animals. Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
So spirit level animals, so you're talking about the animals who are passed away?
Yes, but there are ones who are physically with us. So I used to have a cat, and this particular cat could speak on every single level of communication.
What do you mean?
So if I talked to her, she understood every word. If I sent her a mental image, she would understand every image I sent her. If I sent her an emotion, she would understand. So every animal, like a human, is very good at one or two of them, even though we have all four. These particular animals are so gifted that you can speak to them equally on any level. Right? Okay. So we call those spirit animals. And they're the kind of animals who come to very specific people who are usually energetics, right? And they can also work with you in your dream time and they guide you. They're amazing creatures. But these are the ones who people go, I want a cuddly cat, but my cat's just not cuddly. Spirit animals like this are, or spiritually inclined, we'll call them spiritually inclined animals, they feel so much and they're so, that it's almost painful sometimes to constantly be around people. So you have to let them come to you. So these are the different levels. And how do you know you have them? You got to watch your animal. You have to study them, get to know them. Right?
And what about the animals? So you also communicate with the animals who have passed away, who are not there anymore.
Yes.
So how does that work?
That's, I offer a service called Grieving Pets, Grieving People. And for me, a lot of people ask me that question. And I'm like, well, I'm not really working for the people. I'm working for the spirits. Right. This is what makes me different than other communicators, other psychics, other clairvoyants. They work to bring closure to the humans. They work with the spirit and the human or the human. I work very specifically with the ancestors. My work is ancestor work. My work is spirit level work. So I really, really enjoy working with dead things. That's my thing. I like the dead things. So I'm not necessarily just a medium, but I work with mediumship. So I can do a whole show about mediumship and doing mediumship, but I like to do different things.
What is the mediumship?
So mediumship is when we can tap into the dead, when we can talk to those who've crossed over.
So, and could be animals, could be humans, could be anyone.
Yes. Now I do have to qualify. The reality is a lot of people will say, I'm a psychic and I work with humans, or I'm an animal communicator and I work with animals. But the reality is if you can work with an animal, you can work with a human. Spirit is spirit. Spirit is spirit. Right? Yeah. So I will have readers come to me and go, how do you do it? And I'm like, well, how do you work with a human? It's a different vibration and it feels different. But if you can talk to an animal, you can talk to a human, you can talk to the spirit of a tree. Because I very much believe in the South American way, which is the Toltec. The Toltec were an ancient people, and they believed everything had spirit. That table has spirit. That cat has spirit. The trees have spirit. Everything has a spirit and comes from nature. If it comes from nature, we can connect it on some level, right? Am I going to go and stand in front of a wall and talk to the wall? Probably not. However, having said that, I have been, I went to one senior home, and it was the first time this ever happened. And I literally heard, I have a boo-boo. I have a boo-boo. And I'm like, what the hell is this? And I,
Like this was the voice that you were hearing in
yeah,
your head?
I actually physically heard this. And I went to my spirit guides.
Sorry,
Sorry.
were you with multiple people or were you alone?
No, I was with multiple people.
And
So
only you could hear that?
yeah, so I was standing there and I was with the owner of this facility and the manager of the facility, and all I kept hearing was, I have a boo-boo. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to sound like a crazy person. And this is always the first thought in my head, okay? I'm going to sound like a crazy person. But I've been taught, and I realize now that if it doesn't make sense to me, it might make sense to somebody else. And the worst I can be is wrong. Right? Worst someone can say is crazy. And in some ways, I am. I'm just not that kind of crazy. So I turned to her and I turned to my spirit guides. I'm like, what am I hearing? So I depend very heavily, if I don't understand something, I depend on my spirit guides. So I have a team of spirits that I work with. We all do. And I said, okay, you know what? If I'm hearing this, what am I hearing? Where is this coming from? And I saw the building. And I'm like, that can't be possible. And they said, it's the building. And I heard, it's the building. And I said, are you the building? And I heard, yes. And I'm like, okay. So I turned to him and I turned to the building and I said, where are you feeling the boo-boo? I thought, let's humor this conversation. I'm having an imaginary conversation, right? Yeah. And I'm pretending it's not imaginary. Where are you feeling the boo-boo? And it showed me exactly where it was. So I turned to the manager and I turned to the owner and I said, this building, and I said, humor me. The building is showing me that I think there's a crack or there's something, because I keep seeing something in the foundation, bottom left of the, and they just went, I cannot believe you're saying that. And I'm like, what am I saying? Tell me, because I need the validation. Mm-hmm. We love validation. Yeah. And they said, tell the building, we're bringing in someone tomorrow to patch that and fix that area of the foundation. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? And I remember the joy and the elation that, number one, oh my God, this is accurate. But number two, I'm not crazy. Oh my God, this is actually happening. And that's exciting, right? I know very famous psychics who will say that you should never be excited when you get something right. Yeah. Because it's just, it is what it is. And it makes you look less legitimate. I'm sorry. This is really cool. I'm hearing ghosts. I'm talking to animals. But that's joyful.
But let me ask you this, like, how can a non-living thing speak to you?
Everything has a spirit. Everything comes from nature.
The building as well?
Sorry?
A building as well?
Well, yeah, think about it. Brick and mortar. Where does that come from? That's stone, right? Stones have stories. If I pick up a pebble, that pebble has hundreds of years of stories, whether we realize it or not. Brick is the same. Everything is made. It comes from nature.
So in a kind of a way that, let's say if this is a...
That's particle board, but particle board is wood.
Wood.
Where does wood come from?
And trees.
Right.
So trees, which is why they have some kind of an internal memory or something that you're able to tap into?
Yeah, it's a spirit. Everything has a spirit. So think of it this way. I'm a biocomputer. And you're a biocomputer. My network, my computer connects to your computer. We network. You download all your information. I download my information. Only difference is I can read the information. That's it. And if I have problems reading that information, I go up to my IT team. So my guides, my guardians, your guardians, they troubleshoot, they bring it back to me, and then I give it back to you, the client. Okay. So what's the difference between me doing that with a human, me doing that with an animal, or me doing that with something that comes from nature itself, just doesn't look like its natural form?
Got it. Okay.
That's it. It just doesn't look like a tree anymore.
But how are they able to communicate with you only in some language, let's say English in this case?
It's not. Sometimes it's through feel. So everybody thinks that when a psychic or a communicator communicates, I'm always hearing words and voices. Yeah. I hear voices. No, I don't. Sometimes I can just feel it. The Italians, every culture has ability that's really very much theirs. So the Italians are the ones I love to talk about because they have what's called the knowing. They just know things, right? It's that old nonna. It's like, didn't I tell you not to do that? Look at what you did. I told you this morning not to go out. The older we get, the more connected to our intuition, the more we tend to trust. And the reason that happens as we get old is because we just don't care anymore. We're just like, whatever.
Is it would you say that like our intuition is somewhat our spirit guides telling us to do?
I stopped asking that question a long time ago. And the reason I stopped asking is because I think it varies with situations. Okay. Sometimes it will be guides and guardians. Sometimes it will be ancestors. Sometimes it'll be an animal. So I believe that guides are made guides, angels are made angels, ancestors are ancestors. So for me, when I tap in, I don't care who comes to me to give me the information, so long as they're of the light and so long as the information's accurate, right? Or else their ass is fired. For me, though, I also will work with animals. Like when I'm on a paranormal investigation, because I work with paranormal teams as well, I do so much. That's a lot of fun because a lot of times what will happen is I will go in, and if we're having trouble, I'll ask that question, do you have an animal or do you have a pet? And they'll say yes. You want to know anything about a family? You want to know anything about a situation? Talk to the animal. The animal is on a different vibe, on a different level of knowledge, of sight. And I find that they're very, very helpful. I was working with a paranormal team where we were at the CNE, we were at the Horse Palace. In Canada, we have this wonderful place. And this is where the troops were deployed in World War I and World War II. It was also native ground at one point, so there was a lot of stuff. But when we go to facilities and locations like that, what do we focus on? What do we focus on when we look at a deployment center or somewhere where there were soldiers? What do we focus on?
Like where some kind of an activity has happened or something?
Yeah, like the military. We think about the people, right? We think about the soldiers and the nurses and the people they were leaving and all that. We tend to neglect the horses and the cats and the dogs that lived in those areas, the rats.
We look into like just human aspect of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right? So when we were there, I was able to give it a different edge that others were unable to. And people loved it. We were able to talk to the rats who slept with the soldiers, the horse. I found out that there was this one stable and I kept seeing a horse there and I kept seeing a man lying in the hay and I couldn't understand it. So the guy we were with, I said, this is what I keep seeing. He goes, yeah. He goes, there weren't enough places and spaces for the soldiers. So the soldiers started sleeping with their horses or with the horses, right? And it was really, really cool to be able to see that, and at one point I kept seeing this black horse coming around the corner and I could hear the hoof prints. And with one of the groups that we were with, because it was a full weekend, this woman came up to me, she goes, like this. And she's like going like this, shaking her head. And I said, what are you seeing? And she goes, there's this big black horse. And I said, you're hearing the hoofs, aren't you? And she goes, yeah. And I said, and it looks like this, isn't it? And she goes, yeah. And she goes, are you telling me I'm psychic? And I'm like, honey, everybody is psychic. I said, but in this space, because there's so much energy, you're tapping really deeply into it. So we were able to teach people, share. It was beautiful.
Am I a psychic too?
Yeah, you're deeply, deeply intuitive, deeply, deeply psychic. And one of the reasons I say that is because you have this tendency, one of the reasons you've blown up as a podcaster is because you feel the right people. You know those energies that are going to connect not only to you, but to your viewers. You find energies that are high vibrational and you bring them into you. The only way you can do that is if you have a high sense of empathy, right? And I know that you're a Gemini and we're the bipolar children on the astrological wheel. We are the extremes. And because of that, we consistently want to play. And we're in our sense of play, we're connected directly to our intuitive self. So the more you play, the more you're aligned. And you are very much in alignment. And we've talked about that. Yeah, definitely. I believe everybody is psychic. It's just tapping into your special gifts.
Yeah, it's just that we don't give it a special name or we don't try to say that, define it that we are psychic or we are that. It's somewhere that we all have that kind of an ability. It's just that different energies, different vibrations that we are all dealing with.
Yes. And the thing too is that we acknowledge it in moments. Yeah. And I think that's the really important thing. We don't have to acknowledge it all the time. Just in those moments of, wow, that something just happened here. That's really cool, right? Like I always say that if you have a moment of psychic experience and you can't name it, just say thank you. Just say thank you.
What was the first psychic experience that you've had?
I'm going to leave that because it actually, no. There's a story you were telling me about your grandmother. And my first psychic experience actually correlates to that story. So why don't you tell your story first and then I'll tell you mine.
Yeah, so that was I've not shared the story ever on social media ever before, but when my grandmother passed away, my maternal grandmother, a night before that, I got a dream where I'm looking at a tree and that tree is full of light. It's full of light and I've never experienced this kind of a dream ever before. And this dream was so clear that I still remember till date that, how, and I'm literally getting
Me too.
goosebumps
Yeah, me too.
right now because the image is so clear and I don't remember dreams most of the time.
Yeah.
And this is one of those which I remember. So it was a bright light shining bright out of the tree and it was fading away. It was like I was zooming out of it. And slowly, and my sister is along with me. We're in a different city. And she wakes me up and I'm just getting out of that I'm zooming out
In
of that
between
dream.
place, yeah.
And she's saying, Sahas, get up, Sahas, get up. And I'm zooming out, and I just wake up and I say, well, what happened? Grandmother passed away. And I was like, I didn't know how to process that kind of an information. So what happened after that was pretty, my grandmother always complained to me that you don't see me often. And at that time, I had not seen her from the last 3-4 months. I hardly got time to, go with my parents to her family home, and I couldn't see her. And her cremation was on the same day. And we were in a different city, which means we had to travel. We had to go to the airport and, travel. So we got the first flight in. And, in Indian culture, in Hindu culture, what happens is that you cremate the dead body.
Yes.
We don't bury it.
Yes.
So I just wanted to have one last look before she was cremated. And so what happened was that it was a little bit of a challenge for us to reach there on time, and we finally were able to make it, and we reached Jammu is where my maternal home is. We reached to the airport, and from there we were to go in a car, and we had to reach right on time. And the funny part is, you know how those movie scenes are there where you're running and you reach there right at one point where you just get a glimpse of that person who was the most important person to you in your life. And I'm running, and that is actually happening. And I'm running. I get out of the car, and I'm running towards where she was about to get cremated, and I see 4 men picking her up on their shoulders, coming in front of me. And the moment when I reach there, and they keep her on the stack of woods, and that moment they removed her face, like the cloth out of her face, and I get to see her one last time before she's getting cremated.
Nice.
And I say that because I think she made sure that I do. Because
I was just going to say that was her last wish.
I would have regretted it for the rest of my life.
Yeah, she made sure that happened. So I'm going to tell you a short story that will validate what you asked prior, which is, do you have psychic ability? Okay. And this is how normally we find out, is because somebody else will tell us a story and we're like, oh my God, I had that kind of experience. So when I was a little girl, I was probably about 6. I remember I was in the in-between place, which is where you were. What you had is called a journey. That is not a dream. That's a whole different topic we can talk about. You had a journey. You were in the Akashic records, and you were in the room of the dead, or the room of ancestors is what I call it. So when I was a little girl, I was in the in-between place, I was, at waking up time. And all of a sudden, I saw my great Auntie Mary. And she was a wonderful woman who was the first female principal in Malta, a very empowered woman. She raised my mother. And I saw her. And she was in a death gown, which is like a black Victorian gown, and she had a veil and everything, standing beside a tree. And it was warm, like a summer's day, and you could feel the cicadas. And there was a bright light behind her. Sound familiar? Mm-hmm. And I remember all of a sudden I was getting zoomed out, and I woke up and I could hear my mother sobbing. And she came up the stairs, and she said, your great Auntie Mary died. And I said, I know. And she said, well, how do you know? And I said, because I just saw her. And she goes, you didn't see anything. You didn't hear anything. And she turned around and she walked away. So your experience where your grandmother was there was filled with light and filled with joy. Mine, in that regard, was very much the opposite experience. But the dream that you had and the dream that I had is a dream that many people have. And I now know that that tree you saw is the tree of life. It's the gateway to our next steps, whether you call it karma or nirvana or Valhalla or heaven, it doesn't matter. But that tree is symbolic of the gateway. That wasn't a dream. That was your grandmother coming to tell you, I'm okay, I love you, I'll see you again. And you did.
Wow.
You are psychic, you are intuitive. You're beyond that because that dream shows you how connected you are to the library, the deeper meanings of life. Not everybody gets to see those things. Okay. Doesn't make one better or worse, lesser or greater. It just depends on the vibe we're on. It depends on who we are. And we're Gemini, right? So Libras are the most psychic on the astrological wheel. And the Pisces is the empath. We're in between. So we get to do it all, right? We have fun. And I have to stop you. Thank you so much for this. I don't think your viewers really understand what it takes to put a podcast together. And I just wanted to say thank you for allowing us to be here today and doing what you do for viewers. Because your podcast is like when you asked me to do this, do you remember? I was elated. I was just like, oh my God, I'm going to be on Sahas' show. So I wanted to say thank you. Also, just to help viewers understand that gratitude is everything, right? And being here today, I am really grateful because we're helping a lot of people understand themselves.
Yeah, and same is with me. I'm grateful for you to come here and share your stories, and I'm also learning so many things about. These are all things. I'm very curious in general.
Gemini.
So, when we met the other day and we was talking about that, because this is very fascinating to think about that. If these things are in your mind or do they really exist in real life?
Yeah.
And because of our day-to-day things that we do in our routine, we tend to ignore these kind of situations or intuitions also.
Yeah, because our society doesn't nurture this in us, right? Our society is a very physical, tangible society. So we believe if we can't see it, feel it, hear it, smell it, taste it, then it can possibly exist. And there are many, many reasons historically for that. But the reality is we're now in a time, like we were talking about the Tree of Life. We spent thousands and thousands of years, 2,500 years, in what we called the Tree of Knowledge. So it was very, no offense, masculine based. So it was that whole idea of being in the head. We were all about the physical, mental. There was a point at which, around 2012, but just recently even, where the Tree of Life, think of a tree, right? And it turns like this. And the tree turns. We have now gone from the Tree of Knowledge to the Tree of Life. And that other side of the tree is intuition, feminine, divine. It doesn't negate the masculine, it rebalances. So right now, all these things that we're going through, all of these things, we're like, oh my God, the darkness, oh my God, where's our world going? All this is a rebalancing. Okay. And we've been through rebalancings like this before. And the reality for me is we're not necessarily in a bad place. It feels bad, but I feel like if you really look at it, there is as much light as there is darkness. But we're trained, and Albert Einstein says this, if someone does 5 good things, right, we focus on that one bad thing. Take a look at what else is happening around us. There's a lot of really beautiful things happening as well, right? A lot of innovation, a lot of new technologies, healing, discoveries, all of these different things.
Talking about this psychic abilities, when were you able to tap into that in terms of understanding that this is something that could also help you become one of the healers? When did you realize and what helped you to realize that? That
I could become one of the, was that healers?
Healers.
I had met somebody, Joseph's dad, and he was an outdoorsman. And I come from a very Maltese family. And Maltese families can be, no offense to viewers, but very conventional, right? We're very inside, we're very that kind of thing, not necessarily outdoorsy people. I mean, there are a lot of them. I'm not saying there aren't. Mine wasn't. Mine was very conventional, very traditional. And so I was always an adventurer, and I was always very active, but I was never able to express that. Joseph's dad was an outdoorsman. He was an adventurer, and he got me into mountain biking and skiing and that kind of, and the more I was outside into the elements, all of a sudden, something woke up in me. And then I started getting very interested in who I was as a Maltese woman. And I started studying about Malta. And I realized that in Malta, there are these beautiful histories in, temples that we have. It's a very archaeological place. It's beautiful. If you want to go to Disneyland, go to Florida. But if you want history and architecture, archaeology, Malta's the place to be. And I found this place called the Temples of Tarshin. And the temples, there are 28 temples of Tarshin, and they were fertility temples and goddess worshipping temples. And just 10 years prior, and this was 25 years ago, so we're talking about, 35 years ago now, archaeologists had discovered that Malta could potentially be, and I always say that because there's a caveat, but potentially be where all the goddess worshipping cultures came from in the Mediterranean and in that area. And I thought, how cool is that I come from a little island that is where all of this wonderful mythology and this kind of stuff started. Thousands and thousands. And there is a theory that before the population of Malta was there was another population, and there was some sort of mass exodus. And then for 2,000 years, there was nobody on the island. And then the people who were there started to come into the island. And so we don't know anything about those people prior, right? And there is a wonderful culture of paganism in Malta. And a lot of people don't talk about that because it's a very Catholic island, right? The whole concept of St. Paul coming to the island, converting the island. Well, if you're converting an island, it must have been something else before, right? And so Malta has a beautiful culture of paganism. And it's lovely. And I really relate to it, and I really connect to it. And the more I connected to it, the more I wanted to know, and the deeper I got. And then again, I ended up in Guatemala and all this kind of stuff, and that really started my journey. So it was really interest in who I was as a person. And as a young woman, I had a really hard time connecting to other women because I'm a tomboy. So I always connected to the masculine far more, and for a lot of other different reasons. And then when I started on this journey and I learned about myself as a Maltese woman, I ended up meeting these women at the Hedge Witch, right? Because I went to Guatemala, which led me to the Hedge Witch, led to other things. And when I was in the Hedge Witch, I started to realize that there were women just like me who were strong and powerful and non-judgmental and who wanted to encourage other women and had this beautiful female power within. And I got hungry and I wanted to know more. And I shadowed Diane, the owner, Diane King. And I owe so much to them, right? Because they not only helped me as a psychic, but they helped me as a woman. And that's what this is. This process of becoming an energetic, whether it's a psychic or an animal communicator or a witch or a healer, I don't care who you are, you have to start with you. And that's a journey of its own. So your question is how did you realize you were a healer? Well, I had to realize who I was as a woman first. I had to realize my relationship to myself. Once I realized my relationship to myself and who I was, that opened the door to me being able to go, okay, what can I do to serve? How can I serve? And that's when the doors to the esoteric started to open up. Right?
Would you call yourself a witch?
Some would. Again, labels, right? So what some would name witchcraft or witches, others would name clairvoyance. And that word is so different in every culture. If I go to South America, and I have friends who are medicine people, and if you say to them you're a witch, they'll go, no, don't say that.
Yeah, it's a very negative connotation around witch, right?
There is, but the reality,
Witchcraft.
there is. But the reality is that witch, actually, the definition of which is wise woman healer. And if you go back historically, these were the women who were the midwives. These were the women that people went to before the doctors came in. And a lot of people say, it's the church that really did a lot. It wasn't. It was, for me and my understanding, because everybody understands things differently, it was more the medical society. Men came in, men were the doctors. They didn't want the women to be the people that people went to. But even then, when the doctors started coming into town, people would go to the midwives and to the hedge witches and to these people that they knew, right?
As healers? Like they were
they knew how to make poultices. They knew how to use nature to heal.
To heal.
Yeah, they used the old ways. And what's crazy is we're going back to it, right? Homeopathy, naturopathy. These are the old ways of doing things. And then when they came in, they didn't like that. So hence, between the doctors, between religion, between very masculine, again, tree of knowledge, way of living, that's when the crises happened in Europe, because that's really where it started. And we had the witch trials and the burnings and all of those things began. And so for me, a lot of people, if you were to name them witch, there's a point of pride in that, because they're wise women healers, So if I'm a healer, then yes, call me a witch. If that's what it means to help people, to heal people, to be able to touch things. Now, witchcraft is a little bit different, right? Witchcraft is still healing, but they heal through manifestation. So, what is a witch? A witch is somebody who can take the unseen and energy of the unseen and manifest it to the physical reality. Okay? That is witchcraft. And witches can do that. But witches are also connected to nature. Okay? They're connected to everything around it. And they use the environment. They use the elements. They use the energies of the ancestors to create in this physical reality. Okay?
Like a healing potion or something. From that
Yeah. So, it's funny. I was at a friend's store yesterday. And I'm going through a big change in my life that's so beautiful and positive. But I needed something. And we're talking, and it was really great and everything. But then all of a sudden I stopped and I'm like, something is drawing me in this store. And I went to these bath salts. And I'm not like a bathy kind of girly. I'm just not like that. But these bath salts were calling to me. And we had been talking about water. And we had been talking about the oceans and how I'm really enjoying that element now. And she goes, very funny, you should choose that. And I said, she goes, out of all the stuff you could have chosen, these bath salts are dedicated to water. And I said, really? And she goes, yeah. She goes, here. She goes, it's my gift. And I'm like, cool, right? So when we talk about witchcraft, we talk about putting things together that can help others as well. And it can be simple as taking salts and putting them together with herbs and putting together, and then that combination of things invested with what you want to manifest, or intention is what creates the power around them, because everything is intention.
So there's a thing called as voodoo magic as well.
So voodoo is a whole
Is
different
it a part
culture.
of witchcraft as well? Or not?
Okay, well, again, these are all labels, right? So voodoo or voodoo is the religion, and hoodoo or root work, that's the plant work that we work with, right? So I know some incredibly gifted people, like one of my friends, Utu. So big shout out to Utu, Witch Doctor Utu. He's awesome. He teaches this kind of stuff out in Niagara at Cat and Monkeys events, and she's wonderful. Cat is a wonderful person who has this little store, and he teaches the real deal to people to help them understand that this stuff is good stuff. Like, it's really healing, that it can really help you. So thank you, Hollywood, for yet again giving us these really dark connotations. Now, having said that, in every culture, we have a saying in Europe, the hand that heals can also harm. The hand that harms can also heal. So it's in the hand of the practitioner, right? But Hollywood, because we want the jump, because we want the rating, because we want all of this kind of stuff, we focus on those things that are dark because it makes for a better horror film. But the reality is if you look at a voodoo doll, let's take a dolly, a puppet. In some cultures they call them puppets. These are meant for healing. Can they be used for other things? Of course. Use your imagination. It's all intention.
Have you seen anything being used for a negative thing?
In my work after 25 years, it'd be hard not to. It would be really hard not to come across that.
Anything that you
That's
remember?
choice. That really is choice as to whether or not you walk that path.
But have you seen other people walking to that path?
Yes. So when I was on this path, I'm very protected, and this is something a lot of people don't know. My first teacher was very dark. She was dark arts, but I didn't know anything at that point. I fell in with her, and she taught me a lot of dark magics, and she taught me how to use sigils, and she taught me how to use a lot. This was my first introduction to this world, was with this very dark witch. And I wasn't necessarily being taught witchcraft. I was being taught energy work. And she ran some circles that are very, with certain people that were not of the light. And when I started to realize what this was and who this was, I had to make a choice. And I did make a choice, and I stepped off that path. I truly believe where there is light, there is darkness. This person wasn't evil, and they don't see themselves as evil, but this person definitely would not hesitate if you did something for them to put you in a jar, which is a big joke in the witching world, right? I'm going to put you, be careful, I'll put you in a jar. I got enough jars in my home, I will put you in.
Can that really happen though?
It's in the eye of the beholder. Can someone put somebody's spirit in a jar or imprison them or that kind of thing? Again, the Akashic Records is limitless. I've learned on my path that there are no limitations. So I think it depends on the power of the person, the power of intent, and I do believe that these things can happen. I believe that. Others may not, and I respect that.
Have you met somebody who has done this kind of a black magic and you know them?
Yes.
You do?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Like inside, you know that they're...
I think everyone pushed to a certain extent. Like if somebody harmed my child, I would not be above, not hurting them, but definitely asking for justice. So let's look at it this perspective. There's always a loophole. Yes?
Yeah.
So the greatest curse and the greatest gift you can give anybody is to give them the gift of knowing their own truth. So if you are somebody who is willing to do the work, a good person or person who's willing to heal, that's a blessing. Because I'm saying, I need you to know your own truth. Go on that journey. But if you've pissed me off, and I say to you, I wish on you that you know your own truth, and you are an ugly person,
You'll know your truth.
you're going to see those uglies. You're going to be in you. Yeah? And those are all going to come to the surface. So is that really black magic? Because in the end, you might heal them. In the end, you might not. But now you've taken it out of your hands and given it to the universe. And this is what I always tell people. Don't deal in black magic. Deal in universal magic. If somebody has done you wrong, you go to the universe and you say to the universe, your gods, whatever it is, go pray and say, you know what? If this person truly has done me wrong, I seek justice. I seek rebalancing. Give it to me. Give it to me.
But if somebody who's
That's not revenge.
That's not revenge.
No, what you're saying is rebalance it,
Rebalance it.
right?
But what if a person is really evil for no reason and the person doesn't want, like a jealousy around somebody? And
Well, my first advice to anybody would be, why are you even around them?
Yeah.
Like, walk away.
But there could be people, right? Let's say if somebody has a power of black magic,
Yeah.
and they're jealous of somebody else's success or fame or money or whatever that, or maybe
Yeah,
having
and this is
a good family
something-
life in that case. Or
Yeah,
something.
so this is, I always say two things. One, learn how to protect yourself, right? Whether you're using the evil eye, whether you are praying to your gods, I don't care what that is. Always ask for that. Ask to be blessed. Ask to be protected from those outside forces. My big thing is I'm always in the right place with the right people in the right time with the right situations. If you ask for that, your vibration will be lifted so that those things don't come to you, okay? Now, inevitably, you're going to find people who are jealous of you, right? So what you do is keep your vibe high. One of the things that I've noticed, and I know this sounds really new agey, and I apologize to anybody out there who is doesn't like new agey stuff, but the reality is that if we keep ourselves clean, if we keep ourselves in a good vibration, nothing can harm us. Nothing can touch us. I knew a man who was an exorcist, literally an exorcist, and he was maverick. He was awesome, but he looked like Santa Claus. Okay. And I loved this guy. He was awesome. And I said to him once, I said, how do you work in that yuck? How do you do that, but still always feel so joyful and clean and bright and beautiful? And he looked at me, and he had his little talismans and stuff like that. And he goes, I always have a joke in my pocket and I know God's on my side. And I went, wow. And that was the thing. His thing was always laughter and humor. I met a bailiff once in a courtroom situation because some people have asked me to come with them. Sorry? A bailiff. A bailiff is the person who will bring in the prisoner and they will assist and do that kind of thing. I don't know exactly what their title is, but this is what they do. Bailiff will bring the person in. Okay. So he said to me, and this guy that he was bringing was a rapist. He was a rapist and he was not a nice man. Not a nice man at all. But this guy, he was patting him on the back and he was smiling and he was joyful. So in between, and you could see the light around, I could physically see light around this guy. You could see him exuding holiness. That's the only way I could have put it. It was beautiful, this gold light. And so I went to him and I said to him in a break, how do you do this? Right? And he goes, what do you mean? And I said, you work with the worst of the worst, and yet you seem to be very joyful and happy. How did you not let this affect you? And he goes, one thing. And I said, what? And he goes, I say to myself, in these people's lives, in order for them to get to where they are right now, Nobody has, maybe they have never heard, I love you. Maybe they've never had a person give them a whit of kindness, just a little bit of kindness. He goes, I don't want them ever to say that that's never happened. So I will be that one person who will at least give them a moment of kindness. And that's really what it's all about. This work is about sitting in your joy, sitting in that. Now, having said that, just because we talk about joy, we're not talking about, I'm sitting in my bliss, oh my God, I have to be in full of love and light. And no, some people's bliss is misery.
Yeah, that's true.
Some people love misery, loves company, right?
Yeah.
Some people love to be miserable. Some people love to work the black magic. Some people love the mojo.
Do you know such people?
Yeah, I do. And that's their way. It's not mine. And I can't judge, right? Judge not, lest ye be judged.
And it's also said that, if you are asking from the universe, you'll have to return something else as well at the same time.
Yeah, so
balance.
some people believe in karma, some people don't. I found that a lot of people who walk that left-hand path don't necessarily believe in karma, or they are the ones feeling like they're the ones who can mete out that karma. They are karma. But if you walk my path or paths like mine, then yeah, you believe in that kind of, in witchcraft they call it the threefold law. What you do comes back to you 3 times. My son, when he was little, said something to me. He said, Mommy, I figured out karma. I'm like, you have? This was a little boy. And he goes, yeah. And I said, oh, okay, what is it? And he goes, okay. He goes, when you do bad things happen. When you do good things, you get presents. And I'm like, oh my God, out of the mouth of babes. So it's true. I believe that when you do good things, you do get presents, right? Whether it's for you or someone else. If I do something good for you, that doesn't mean that the karma is directly going to affect me. My son might get that karma, right? So for me, I don't care if karma exists or karma doesn't exist. I'm going to go through my life and do what feels right for me, what feels good for me. And if that means I'm going to do you a solid, I know somewhere down the line, I'll get that back somehow. Right? And that's the way I like to live. Because for me, it's not worth the karma or worth the darkness. Because if I do something to hurt somebody, I'm hurting. That means somewhere I'm hurting. And I feel sorry for people who do that. I feel bad because there's got to be something really hurting for you to be able to justify hurting others.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. How do spirits talk to you?
It depends on the person in front of me. So if someone in front of me is a clairaudient, in other words, they can hear on the other side, my clairaudience will increase.
So for example, let's take my example right now. Let's do kind of
Empathy. So if you are highly empathic and intuitive in that way, then my sense of feel is going to heighten. If you are somebody who, if they cry with you, right, and you cry because you feel them, when you're with me, I will feel everything you feel.
Okay, so now
that's how I'll read is through feel. And if somebody can see ghosts, I will see them more clearly, right? And that's the way I work.
If someone sees ghosts, as in a person who's sitting in front of you sees ghosts?
Yeah. So I've had children who have seen ghosts. I had a little girl once come in, and she kept kind of looking to the side. She kept going like this. She kept going like that. And I said, you see him too, don't you? And she goes, what? And I said, the little boy in the buoy. He was like a little boy in, on the ships, you see the buoys, and the little boy was sitting in a buoy. And she goes, yeah. She goes, it's like a donut. And I said, yeah. And she goes, he drowned. And I said, yeah, I know. And she goes, you see him too? And I said, yeah. I said, you're normal. It's okay. There are a lot of people like you. And that's the reason Mom brought her in, was because it scared her. She wasn't functioning well. And it was so nice to know that I was able to help this little girl. So my beautiful gift, my beautiful ability enables me to piggyback other people's abilities in order to help them and see for them. Because if that's your ability, whether you realize it or not, that's going to be the most comfortable way of me relating to you, is through your own ability.
Can you tell me in steps, how does it work? For example, if I'm sitting in front of you and you say that my feelings and my energy is empathy.
Yes.
Right? And this is what you're feeling. Is that how you call upon your spirit guides to tell you about things?
Sometimes. I just taught a class and I asked people, how does this work? Yeah. How does psychic ability work? And some people gave me some answers, and some people said, I don't really know. And I said, you're right. I don't exactly know how it works. And if anybody tells you that there's an exact science to it, they're wrong. But for me, most times it just happens. So if I'm reading you, I just download the information, and however the information comes, I allow myself to express
So
it.
does it have to be like if you were to do the reading on me right now?
Yeah.
Do I have to ask you a specific question?
No. So with me, I believe that a really great reader, as soon as you walk through the door, they're networking with your computer, right? And so I should be able to get specifics. I should be able to get information about your personality, about who you are, about what you do. But even more so, I should be able to know things that I don't know, right? And that's a really, really important aspect because it legitimizes you.
Is there something that you can guess about me which you don't know before?
Well, I've already read
You've done that.
Yeah,
I
like we
know
went
we've
in
done
depth.
it.
So there's a lot of stuff that I already know about.
You already know.
And that's the other thing too, is if I read somebody enough or I become friends with them or family or that kind of thing, I don't want to read them. I can read them, but I don't want to because I know so much that it colors it, right? And it superimposes it. What's going on with your hearing? Did you have something going on with your hearing? What's going on with your ears? Did you have a hearing problem or something going on with your ears? And it's the left ear. What do you hear? What do you hear?
Just yesterday when I was
Your left
taking
ear.
shower,
Yeah.
the water went into my left
That's
ear.
it. There it is.
Just yesterday.
Yeah,
It's so crazy.
something with your ear. So notice how they threw me a bone. And that's the scary part because most times people will say, I don't know. So then my anxiety goes up. I'm like, oh my God, I'm a fraud. Oh my God, imposter syndrome,
I
right?
know.
But I have
But it's so
learned,
funny, like it's a very minute detail.
Right.
You know?
but that's all it takes to
And-
legitimize.
But you know, it is not something that always happens with me when I'm taking a shower. It's not like always that my left ear got blocked. So
Right.
like, I was
And why
thinking-
not you're right? Why did I not say you're
Yeah,
right?
it's so funny.
Right? And it's not something that you could possibly fathom, like there are certain people
But
in
this
the
is something
world-
which doesn't happen every single day. It
Right.
happened just once a while, and that happened yesterday. And
Yeah.
you were telling me that there's something wrong with your left ear. Yeah, because yesterday I was just trying to take out water from my ear.
But that one little thing, if somebody comes through the door and I say that, opens the door to everything else. Oh my God, she's real. Because I picked something and it's a random, stupid little thing, right? But that random little thing opens the door to a world.
But how did
and
that-
notice your body too. As soon as I did that, you went from this quiet, now you're smiling and your body started shaking. It's like, oh my God, okay,
So
we're
that's
on to
an
something. Oh my God,
affirmation. You get,
right?
yeah. So you also take notices and observation from body language
Yes.
as well.
Look, people say all the time, looking at the physicality is a cheat. No, it's not. Because if I see somebody in my reading going like this and they're uncomfortable, I don't want to continue with the reading. But if I see somebody excited, I'm like, okay, we can continue down this path, right? And the thing is too, is when I read the physical, that opens, all it is a key to opening the door to the next part of our reading. That's all it is. Right?
Yeah.
And that's it. And I love that. And I don't fish. Fishing is when people will lead you on or lead somebody on and ask questions so that you're giving them the answers, right? So if I'm with an audience, because I do audience readings as well, there are readers out there. There's a wonderful South Park episode that I was just introduced to about John Edwards. Guys, go see it. It's brilliant. And some readers do that. They'll turn around and go, I see John in this section right here. And inevitably someone's going to go, I have a John. Right? And this John, he died and it was tragic because everybody was sad. Well, you know what? If we all have a John and who probably died and death is sad. Like, do you know what I mean? So you have to be really
Very
careful.
careful about
Yeah, because the reality, like I teach that because sometimes the subconscious mind is going to trick you, right? Like I might have seen on a dog a red patch on their body. Subconsciously, I might have taken that in and my brain is going, okay, they have an allergy because there's a red patch, but I don't see it consciously. So sometimes animal communicators will look at the physical stuff and they will take that physical stuff and they'll make it into as if they're communicating.
Oh, okay.
Right? So for me, what I do is I try to go in clean. This is why I like to read fast. So if somebody comes through the door and I'm reading them right away, it's because I haven't taken note of things. The less I know, the better. The less I see, the better. This is one of the reasons I don't listen to the news. Right? This way I can come in clean if somebody comes into my room.
Because most of the people are trying to, unvalidate you.
Yes, they
That
are.
is also
They're
one
trying
of
to
the-
debunk,
Yeah.
right? And that's fine. And I love skeptics. They're my favorite. I've been on the air with News Talk 1010. I was Angel the Psychic for 7 years with my friend Barb DiGiulio on her show. And we used to get people like that. How dare you do this? Well, I'm not hurting anybody, for number one. And number two, if you really don't like it, there are lots of other things you could be listening to. Yes.
Yeah.
And number 3, if you really want to test the lie, come in and do a reading with me, or ask me a question on the air. You know.
So at the moment when you guessed something about my left ear, something.
So we
what-
don't call it guessing; we call it tapping in.
tapping in.
Yes, tapping in. So a lot of people will say that you're guessing. No, you're tapping in.
So the moment when you tapped into my, like what happened to my left ear, what really happened? with
Okay,
you?
that's awesome. That's an awesome question. Nobody ever asks me that question. I love your questions. So basically, I was sitting here and I got very still inside. I went, show me. Internally, I asked my guides and guardians everything. Your guides and guardians, everything. I'm like, show me something. Give me something. He wants something. Just anything. And all of a sudden, I started to shake inside and I felt like I was underwater. Funny enough, I didn't even think of that till, see how the connections come later? I literally felt like I was underwater and then I saw your ears and I'm like, something's not right with his ears. And then they showed me it's his left ear. In that moment, I remember it was... what I should have done was stayed still, because then my head took over. Because I'm like, okay, they're showing me the ears. So if it's ears, something's wrong with the ears. That's when I said, something's off with your ears. If I had stayed quite a few more minutes, they may have showed me the shower. They may have shown me the water. They may have shown me, but I jump sometimes, right? So I was really quick and I turned around and I felt that. I went, no, it's the ears, because I saw your ears. And then they said left ear. And I said, okay, it's the left ear. And that's when you turned around and said, yeah, there's something with the left. And I left it with you. Because I've realized too that if I say something and I'm strong and I'm powerful and I allow myself to stand by what my guides and guardians have said, eventually you're going to figure it out, right? So some people will go, well, yeah, then they're going to take that and run with it.
Yeah.
But that's such a specific thing.
Yeah, that's such a specific thing.
Right. Like if it was, oh, well, you know what? I see you in black and, you know, you really like black. Then yeah, that's leading you on. But this was your ear. It was specific. I didn't say your right ear. I said your left ear, right? And then it was like, okay. And then you said, yeah, it was the shower. Now, all right, see, then that's great. And I depend on my guides and guardians. I depend on your guides and guardians too, to kind of talk. So and then I get the information.
So are those voices that you hear, or is it something visual?
No, that was visual and feel. Again, your feel. Right? So I saw the vision, and you're a very visual person too, right? So I saw it I saw your ears. I literally saw your ears.
But I wasn't even thinking about the ears.
No, you don't have to.
I wasn't.
No.
How is that possible? Like, that's what I'm trying to comprehend.
Oh,
like,
me too. Trust me, this is not something that doesn't, every day I'm like, how did that happen? Like, how do you tap in? I ask this question all the time. But the problem is, in answering that question, is there are limitless ways of tapping in. There are limitless, it depends on you, it depends on me, it depends on the vibe of the day, it depends on what realm of the Akasha we're in. Like there's just so many, it's limitless as to how I can tap in. And it's a situation.
But do you know there are some people who also talk about astral travels?
Yes, astral travel.
So do you also do that?
That's called journeying. So when you went and saw your grandmother, that's an aspect of astral traveling or journey jumping. Okay, journey jumping is another.
And some people say that they like there are so many videos on Instagram that you see that somebody who was interviewed as an astral traveler, and that person is saying that I went to Jupiter and I saw that and I met aliens and I did this and they told me this about our society and our community and this is what they're telling me. So is that how it works?
It depends on the person and their abilities.
Or are they even telling the truth?
So everyone has their unique abilities. Are there people who can astral travel? Yes. Are there people who take advantage of that and they, maybe expand on the experiences they have? Yes. Are there people who will mistake their imagination for what's really happening? Yes. Are there people who can actually astral travel? Yes, there are. Again, the skeptic in me, right? I've always questioned the idea of aliens and things like that. Do I believe they exist? Do you know what? Who am I to say they don't? Right? Have I tapped into other realms and other, stuff like that? Yeah, but those are the ones I kind of go, I'm not sure yet, even after 25 years.
Okay.
Do I believe people can do it? Sure, I'm sure they can. Sorry, what's your name again?
Girl.
Do you have a cat? Not a cat, a dog?
Yeah.
Oh, you have a dog. Okay. I don't know why I said cat. When you leave, tell him him?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell him when you're coming back because he literally waits like, when's he coming home? Are you home? Are you coming home yet? Are you coming? There's a thing that a lot of people don't do, which is they don't let their animals know. It's like if you had a child, right? And you leave, don't you usually say to them, like I would usually say to my kid, listen, I'll be back soon, or I'll be back before dinner, right? Be very specific with your dog, because that will actually calm him down, and he'll have actually, he'll rest more when you're gone. And he does, he's saying he does rest. He goes, but he gets excited. He'll like hear something or hear someone, think it's you. Kind of thing. So just let him know, give him like a time frame when you're coming, because he's highly intelligent and he can figure it out. He's not an old dog, is he? Yeah, no, he's what, 2 or 3?
2. That's crazy.
Yeah.
We just adopted a
Fuck,
dog.
we should have done this.
Oh, really?
Okay, you know what? We should have done this on air.
This is airing.
We just adopted
Was
a
this
dog.
on air? Is this filming?
Yeah.
Okay, good. There, we've just done it. So even though you weren't on
You know-
camera, can you use that?
Yeah, we can use that.
There.
And you know what is the most incredible thing?
Use it just the way we're doing it.
I
now.
thought he never told me about that he adopted a new dog. He didn't tell anyone because his dog passed away a few months ago in October.
Was that the bigger dog? Yeah, it was. Was it black?
Black and white.
Black and white. Okay, yeah. That dog is here, and he's really sorry that was a he.
Yeah.
As well. He's really sorry that he had to go, and he knew that it was really heartbreaking. But you were in a place of acceptance about it. And this particular dog who passed away said it wasn't. It was hard. He didn't want to leave you, but it wasn't hard because thank you, you accepted it, right? It was like, okay, it's okay, you can go now, kind of thing. Did he have heart issues? How did he? Because I keep getting something. Oh no, the heart is okay. The heart is his heart was heavy. Sorry, again. See, I'm going too fast, right? This is me as a psychic and as a Gemini. I go too fast. When we started, did you notice that my speed was not as quick, and I started to ramp up?
Yeah.
If I ramp up, that's when things kind of go. Okay, I got to slow down again, right? And it's amazing because it went from dog to human to dog, right?
Yeah.
And that will happen. So with animal communicators in a session, a lot of animal communicators will very much stick to the animal. I'm very unique that way because I will go from the animal to your animal spirits, to those animals who've crossed over. Sometimes the animal will have information for you.
Yeah.
Sometimes I trust so implicitly what's happening in the reading that that I know if I'm talking to the human instead of the animal, it will always circle back to the animal, or it's for your benefit because the animal's trying to tell you something, right? So that's the way I work. So.
And this will happen very spontaneously.
It can. I'm very careful with that because I'm not Teresa Caputo. I don't walk down the street and go, oh my God, you have a spirit around you. That's just not my style. But what I will do is I will ask my guides and guardians, you've given me this piece of information. Should I share it?
Yeah.
Give me the opportunity.
But sometimes what I've seen with you, what happens sometimes is that even if I've not asked or somebody's not asked, it will just hit you.
Yeah, but if I know the person and
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with them, I
Yeah.
will give them the information.
But
right?
does
Yeah.
it keep happening? Like, does it keep hitting
Yeah,
to you?
yeah. Once it's open, the channel's open. And so with
Sorry, I'm just
Go ahead.
very curious about this. So when you asked him, he wasn't like asking you about it.
Yes.
But same with me, like when we were standing here and you told me something about me.
Yes.
And is that you keep getting information no matter if a person is asking or not, and you'll not tell unless a
His
person...
situation's a little different because his dog came into the room and wanted to talk to him. So I honored the dog. I honored the spirit, right? So sometimes, okay, so what happens is, remember how I said we're computers, right? If I'm walking in a mall, all of a sudden a random piece of information can connect to my computer. I get a random piece of information
yeah.
and you're just like, okay, I'm not saying that because they really don't need to know. And I just move on. Sometimes I will be bombarded with information, especially if I'm walking in a mall and I tap into somebody and I get a random piece of information that could open the door to more, right? And I'll be like, okay, no, I'm in control.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to ask.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't work with spirit. Spirit does not work with me. We work together. So as the conduit, I have every right to turn around and go, no, I don't want to read that. Or if I'm being overwhelmed, step back, please. If I'm on stage, I can have hundreds of people. And what will happen is that you will see spirits come, so the very first time I ever stepped out on stage as a psychic, oh my God. So I was a performer for 20 plus years. I'm a trained actor in Shakespeare and his contemporaries. That was a whole other iteration ago. And so this friend of mine came to me and she said to me, do you want to do this show, One Dark Night? And I said, well, okay, I've never done it before. She goes, try. So I went on stage. As soon as I hit the stage, I went, oh my God, I know what I have to do with my life. And I went on stage, but as soon as I did that, all the spirits of all the people in the audience started to come down in a group. And I remember saying it, but I didn't realize I was saying it out loud. And I was just like, if all of you don't step back right now, I'm not reading anybody. Every spirit turned around and went back and stood beside their people. It was amazing for me. I wish people could see what I saw. And then I said, okay, come down one by one. That was the day I realized I was fully in control. That when I work with spirit's going to do as I ask, and ask, not say. They're going to do as I ask because they want to connect to me. They want to get the messages out. As much as we want the messages, they want those messages out.
But is that some kind of a veil that opens between
yes.
the dead
And that's
the
exactly what it is. It's a veil that lifts. So the new show that I'm doing, I'm touring a show right now, is called Spirit Box. The Psychic Experience. And in that particular show, it's a contest between the old traditional ways and the new technologies. And the audience is the one that's going to decide at the end of the show what we are more predisposed to right now. And it's going to be great because it really is an interactive show. It's going to be great. But in the first half, I do basically what I did here, right? And with you, I do readings, pure, simple with the audience. The second half of the show, though, we're up-leveling the game. It's never been done on stage before, except with me. I did it once last year. Didn't eat for 6 weeks before because it was like, okay, you know what, is this going to work? We use a piece of paranormal equipment called a spirit box, and we put the spirit box on stage, and as I'm reading, we have the spirit box going. And with the spirit box, you actually hear voices that come through from the dead. And it was really cool because people were asked their questions of me, and then the spirit box would answer, and the spirit box and I would work together. And at one point it was really cool because just out of the blue, and it was clear as day, we heard Miles. And in the corner was one of my very best clients. He wasn't going to come. And I said, that's him. And he went, yep, very stoic man. Yep, that's my dad. And I went, are you kidding me? And then at one point, which floored everybody, including me, I said, in all the years I've been working with Spirit Box and being on stage, I have never had from a Spirit Box an animal come through. I've never had that. I wonder why. All of a sudden, we heard dogs barking.
Wow.
Clear as day. And I work with local paranormal teams. So the paranormal teams are on stage with me and they're manning the box. So it's not me listening for it. We have other people listening for it, right? So it's a wonderful team effort to bring this beautiful piece of entertainment. And then there's a twist ending to this show. So if you want to know what that is, come and see the show.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to come there.
Oh, yeah, you are. You are.
You're having one in Toronto as well?
Yeah, so the show in Toronto is on September 20th. If you're in the Vancouver area, that's August 8th. Toronto is September 20th at the Factory Theatre, just up the street. And then we have a show in Niagara on Halloween night in Niagara. And with that, we're doing a paranormal seance as well, what I call a paranormal seance, because we're using paranormal equipment along with the seance. So that means that the dead can come through that. And we've done that before, and it works very well.
So I'm going to put the link and everything on the description for this.
I would love that.
One question that I was thinking about when you were talking about this, when you're communicating with the animals specifically in the spiritual realm,
Yeah.
which kind of animals are easier to talk to and which are a little...
What a fantastic question. So every animal communicator can talk with any animal. But we do have our forte and our specialties. And these are just, I guess, given to us. I don't know. Mine is exotics. So monkeys, whales, snakes, anything that you consider an exotic, large animals like horses, cows, things like that. Exotics are my forte. My son, who probably wouldn't like me talking about this, but when he was a little boy, I remember walking in, I'd just done animal communications, and he'd done this many times before. I just didn't notice it. I wasn't aware. And he was going with his finger like this on the floor, and there was a spider following his finger. And I thought, oh, how endearing, how adorable, how cute. And then I took a second look at the spider, and the spider was walking backwards. And my heart just went, oh, that was creepy for me. And I'm just like, what are you doing? And the boy's like, well, I'm making him walk backwards, Mommy.
Really?
And I'm like, are you kidding me? So his forte has always been insects. Spiders follow him everywhere, wherever he goes. Spiders are in abundance.
Is he a Spider-Man or something?
Somewhat, yeah, somewhat, right? But insects of all kinds, and he is very animal oriented, which is really cool. Like I could tell you story upon story where he's concerned. Even now, he's a very unique creature himself. But we're animals, we're mammals, right? So everybody does. I know a wonderful animal communicator. She's one of the oldest in our field, and she's been doing this for 45, 50 years. And her forte and all she works with are horses. She won't work with anything else. She can hear everything, but that's her thing.
There's a huge battle on internet about cats and dogs. Cats, they don't treat humans the way the dog treats humans.
No, absolutely not. It's different. Cats are very in tune with the spiritual aspect of who we are. They're very they're very spiritual, physical.
Yeah.
Whereas dogs are very emotional, mental, right? So they're more. Now, having said that, you're going to find cats who are the same, but yeah, they're highly, like, you can see that in them, that they're highly independent. They're very different. It's like humans.
Yeah.
You have humans who are emotional. You have humans who are physical.
Yeah.
Right?
But when you're communicating with them, like, are dogs better communicator or are cats better communicator?
Ooh, that's I've never really taken note of that. I think because, and no offense to anybody out there, I'm really sorry, I'm going to get flack for this. I'm not 100% a dog person. I'm more of a cat person. I'm a reptile person, okay? Period, end of story. I find cats are a little bit easier to communicate with, but that's primarily because they're very on a different vibe that's it can be very spirit level. Like there's a magic to them that's different than dogs, right? Because the dogs can be very physical, very grounding, very that kind of thing. Whereas there is a mystique around them. Art imitates life, and if you look at stories, cats are always very etheric, and they're very, Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cats. It's all about the mystique of cats, whereas dogs are always man's best friend.
Yeah.
And that's just because we are unknowingly tapping into that understanding of the spiritual aspects of who they are. So because I work so much on spirit level, I'm kind of spiritual emotional. I will tap into that more. Right. So, yeah, are they easier? Sometimes, most times. But no, I love dogs too. I mean, I do. I adore them. I think they're wonderful, wonderful creatures. And for me, I think the bigger the animal, the easier it is to communicate. So my theory is the more I am shocked and surprised, the more I understand how real it is.
Real it is.
Right? And animals will help their families too. I had a bird. It's one of my favorite stories where I went in to talk to this bird. And the bird kept saying something to the effect of, don't let him go away, don't let him go away. And this lived in this boy's room. So we thought it was about university and whatever. And then the boy showed me something really dark. And I'm like, okay, I think I need to talk to the parents about this. And so we had a very, very careful conversation about what the bird. And so I said to the boy, I said, are you okay? And he didn't say anything. And Mom went, is something going on? And then he just started crying and he started talking. And we realized when the bird said, don't let him go away, it had nothing to do with university. And they got him help. And the boy, they still every once in a while kind of see how he's doing and that kind of, because the family became kind of friends and that. And he's doing well now. He's doing well now.
Like he was on the verge of...
Yeah. He was on the verge of, and it's so funny because like even now I kind of hold my neck because it's like the pain I would feel, like I was feeling it. So I saw even the way he wanted.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very
so
interesting.
So that's graphic for you. That's a visual for you.
Little. Yeah, little. Yeah.
Wow.
But you learn, right? You learn.
Do you see a lot of times when you're communicating with, let's say, with the dead or the living or whatever, do you see if something bad is happening with them and you feel that too?
Oh, yeah. There are times when I feel it so much, I'm like, okay, you have to back off now because it's too much. I've seen people, okay, so I had a really cool, I was in a restaurant and I went downstairs and in this old meat locker, I kept seeing this man swinging. And I was dismissing it. And then I realized, sit in it. Like, who is this guy? And he showed me his story. But at the end of the story, which was really sad, I could feel him. Right? And I went, okay, enough. And as soon as I did that, everything ended, everything stopped. Right? So he wanted me to see and feel everything. I saw his sorrow, I saw his pain, I saw his death. I felt all of it. So, and sometimes you endure it, and sometimes you're just like, okay, I can't do this. I cannot handle this. Like kids, that's a hard one for me. So I spent a lot of my career where I set the boundaries with because you can do that. Young people on this path don't realize that they're very much in control of this. And I sat with my spirit guides and I went, you can give me anything, don't give me dead kids. I can't do dead kids. Like it's too much. I had a man come in whose boy had just passed, and it was recent. And I read the boy, and he was there, and the stuff that came out was so heartbreaking that after he left my presence, it was in a party. It was at a party too. And I went in the washroom and I just cried and I cried and I cried. Because it was just so heartbreaking. I went, I can't do kids. And it's only in the last couple of years that I think I am now able to work with that. And I usually say to them, unless it's me, I'm the only person on the planet who can do that, don't send it to me, right? So I've had some kid stuff over the years, but now it's better. Now I can detach a little bit more, which is easier. But it's a wonderful path to be on, but it's challenging. It's not what people think it is.
I think
they think,
it takes
ooh,
a
I
lot
get
of
to
toll on you as well.
It does. Yeah, it does. This is one of the reasons I mountain bike. This is one of the reasons I go to the gym and I find ways to express that stuff. Like if anybody is on this path right now, please understand that if you are seeing things, if you're experiencing things and it feels overwhelming, please, please, please find an outlet. Find something that you can do that will make you feel good and that you can express yourself. That's as good as counseling, right? Because it's hard for people like us to be able to go to counselors who will be sensitive to what we go through. And this is where tribe comes in, right? It's really important to have people who are your friends and your support system. So I have a tribe of readers and energetics, and a friend of mine who's a neuropsychologist that I do trust, that trust me, that I can go to if I'm having a hard day, and I can call and just go, hey, listen, let's talk. I need to talk, or can I borrow your eyes for something? Because we go through our stuff too.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And especially when you are communicating with so many different species, realms, and there's so much going on, and I think it takes a whole lot of energy out of you.
It can. I find after shows I'm pretty pumped up, but it depends on the day. It depends on who I've been reading, what I've been reading, right? But for the most part, I love my work.
How's this room giving you the vibe?
This room's always felt good. This room's always felt comfortable and welcoming, and we were talking about that in the break. You attune this room unconsciously to whatever the vibe is of the person who's with you. I was saying to you that, one of the reasons I feel like you're one of the best hosts I've ever worked with. Really? No, seriously. I tend to like to speak the truth. I don't like to kind of smoke and mirrors things. And I'm like that with my readings too. But it's just, I don't think I've ever felt this comfortable in an interview. It feels really warm and welcoming. And that's a really wonderful, wonderful thing. But again, as an empath, you're also throwing back the energy of the person in front of you. So if I'm feeling warm and welcoming, my first thought is, oh, is that my energy too? I know you're warm and welcoming, that's a given, but is that mine, which is really neat, right? So from now on, when you interview people, take note of how you feel, right? Are you feeling a little edgy? Are you feeling a little erratic? 9 times out of 10, that's not you, that's a person in front of you. Because you're tapping into that feel. Without mentioning names, is there anybody who's ever sat in front of you in your interview where you're just like, oh, okay, I feel weird with them, or I feel like I'm in a different place. I'm not as calm as I was before, or I'm not, they just make you feel different. And it's not necessarily them making you feel happy. You just, something about them.
Not necessarily, because I think I've just done like 15, 20 interviews. This is not too much for me.
Okay.
I feel that if I might have done over 100 or 200 interviews, then I would be able to tell you better.
Well, now you'll be aware, right?
Yeah, but what I've seen is that sometimes I have to match somebody else's energy, and sometimes that is so higher than mine.
Got it.
And that I will pretend and I will be there.
Okay, but that's what I'm talking about. So you feel their energy, and then you kind of go up.
I go up
or
there.
you go down to wherever. That's the gift of the empath.
Okay.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. So you're feeling that person in front, and then you adjust accordingly.
I adjust accordingly.
Right.
I have to adjust based on because I don't want to somebody so high up in energy, and I'm like, okay, so what do you do for a living?
Yes.
I don't want to be that.
Yes. So you do that. You instinctively do that.
Yeah, because I also want to make sure the other person, feels comfortable to sharing, because if that person is comfortable in sharing a few things about their
Yeah.
personality or their profession or something, whatever they have the stories about. Otherwise, then it's not going to be a great conversation for anyone to hear also, right?
Well, that's it, right? And I think times that by 10 with my work, because
Yeah.
when people come to see me, especially the first time, they never know what to expect,
Yeah.
right? So my thing is I always want to try and make people feel safe
Yes.
and comfortable in
Yes.
my environment, which is why I start reading as soon as they walk in. And I try to be relatable. I try to help them understand that I'm a person. Like you see me, I'm not wearing, like, okay, today I'm wearing my bracelets just because I bought some new bracelets, but I don't normally wear
Just
a lot
some?
of bracelets yeah, I know, eh? Like this is not really me to do this, funny enough.
Yeah.
I don't wear a lot of regalia, right? This is just something, I
Yeah.
was at a store yesterday and I went crazy. Okay, fine, I'm also a girl. But I try to help people understand that, everybody has this. And yeah, the only thing that really makes me different is that I chose to start up on this path when the calling came, and I practice it every day, and I allow myself to go through the trials and tribulations of growth that readers do. I go to ceremonies to help me open up my abilities. I've studied with other readers. I mirrored and shadowed my mentor for 10 years learning the trade. This is a calling.
Yeah.
This isn't a job where I
Yeah.
just make money. This isn't a career where I just identify with it. This is my calling in the sense of how shall I serve? What do you want me to do to serve?
Yeah. Angel, this has been an incredible podcast.
It has been. Thank you so much.
And what I think is that this podcast was just a slight overview of what all things are that you do, because it was so hard for me to figure out to just say that, oh, this person does this. No, that's not true for you.
No.
It's like so many things. And I think this was just a kind of an overview kind of a podcast. And like we discussed, I think we should have specific podcasts
I love that.
all in the series. Like we
Yes.
just talk about
Witchcraft
animal
in
psychic,
one and
witchcraft
healing-
in one,
yes.
so that we can get deep into one topic itself.
Yeah.
And if you are watching this till now, just tell me in the comments that if you want to see Angel again and which particular topic that you want her to talk about.
Yes. Well, what I really love is that every culture has and every country, every place has its abilities. So I've learned here that in Vancouver is the place of healers, Ottawa is the place of witches, and Toronto is the psychics. When I look at Italy, it's the place where they know stuff. But one of the things I noticed about India, and I want to say this because it's such a close culture. I love this culture because you guys are the empaths and the healers, but you're also the spiritual leaders. And I think, we're circling back to your abilities. You truly are a spiritual leader. And thank you for giving us all the platform to help heal others. And we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. And if you're not subscribed yet, then click right now and subscribe, because every week I'm going to post a video or a podcast, and it is going to be about marketing, content creation, and business. And if you want to check out some other videos and interviews, then here are some of my recommendations for you.